Did you ever go mad for Mad About You? The hit sitcom that gave us 8 seasons of New York mundane humor. And that may sound bad, but it was anything but. Beginning in 1992, Mad About You made us laugh while preaching everyday adulthood, touching on issues like sex, night shifts, and mismatched couples. And the mundane thing about it was how honestly the characters, the city of New York, was portrayed. And more importantly, how a real loving couple works through issues and life together. The show was full of energy and incredible chemistry, but most of the joys of the Big Apple sitcom came from never leaving the apartment. And trust me, I can relate. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, and today we're heading back to New York City to check in on Paul, Jamie, and the rest of the gang. If you don't mind, please hit that thumbs up icon for us, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a cast rewind like this. But come on, let's revisit our favorite, largest one-bedroom apartment in Greenwich Village. Paul Reiser. Paul Buchman is an indie documentary filmmaker who struggled for recognition after film school but is living the dream in NYC. Now, Reiser co-created this sitcom with Danny Jacobson, who had his first created show only last 1 year in 1991. You may remember the Randy Quaid comedy Davis Rules, but this time Jacobson had Reiser to lean on, and Paul could do it all. Anchored this terrific sitcom, even composed that happy theme song. He played piano on the recording. Seriously, what can't he do? And Reiser parallels his Mad About You character in many ways. Himself born and raised in New York City, and drawn to Greenwich Village comedy clubs, which featured some of the rawest, truest talent in the biz, like George Carlin and Robert Klein. And this is where Paul began doing stand-up comedy. You know that season 1 episode with Steve Buscemi? It was inspired by a real incident. When Steve was trying his hand at stand-up, one night he bombed so badly, another comic was forced to take his place. And the guy who grabbed that mic was Paul Reiser. Paul began acting in 1982 kind of by accident. He accompanied a friend, and while in the waiting room, he got persuaded to audition. And he was hired for the quick-witted film Diner. And since Paul came from stand-up, when it came to the improv for the film, some, like Kevin Bacon, were not skilled at it. But Tim Daly describes Reiser as, quote, "He's the sharpest, fastest guy alive."
You know what word I'm not comfortable with? Nuance.
Next up was his role as Jeffrey in Eddie Murphy's Beverly Hills Cop. And then he appeared as the questionably motived Carter Burke in the 1986 James Cameron sequel, Aliens. In 1987, Paul got his first taste of parenthood and television, co-starring with BJ and the Bears' Greg Evigan on the NBC sitcom My Two Dads. And you combine that with Mad About You, and Paul was on TV for over a decade straight, continuing that trend with 2011's The Paul Reiser Show. But although Reiser was still charming, the show was a mid-season replacement that only aired 2 episodes before cancellation. In recent years, he's enjoying television as Doug Getty in the Amazon show Red Oaks, the Mad About You continuation in 2019, as well as the wildly popular Netflix show Stranger Things. Today, Reiser is in his mid-60s and still tours the country to sold-out venues, just recently being voted one of Comedy Central's top 100 comedians of all time. And the comic's been married to Paula Ravitz since 1988, and the couple has 2 children together. Helen Hunt. Jamie Buchman was working on her education after moving to New York, and eventually opened her own PR firm. Jamie's ongoing and challenging relationship with her mother-in-law is a wonderful source of humor for this show. Helen Hunt began studying acting at the age of 8 with her father, a respected director and acting coach, Gordon Hunt. A year later, she made her professional debut as William Shatner's daughter in the TV movie Pioneer Woman. Hunt was even considered for the role of little Tabitha Stevens on Bewitched, but her big break came as a preteen actress when she was cast as Helga Wagner in 1975's The Swiss Family Robinson. She then made her feature film debut in '77 with the up and down suspenseful film Roller Coaster. Project X came in 1987, co-starring with Matthew Broderick. And a personal favorite of mine was The Wild Ride of Twister, with Bill Paxton and a very funny Philip Seymour Hoffman. and finally having her own sitcom with Mad About You, for which she won 4 Emmy Awards for her Jamie Buchman. As the 90s came to a close, Helen Hunt won an Academy Award for Best Actress for the romantic comedy As Good As It Gets, alongside the iconic Jack Nicholson. Today, Helen Hunt is 58 years old and has one daughter with former partner Matthew Carnahan, whom she was with from 2001 until 2017. John Pankow. Cousin Ira is Paul's cousin who worked with his dad Burt at Buchman Sporting Goods. And while the cousins were friendly, a hidden rivalry surfaced when Ira took ownership of Buchman Sporting Goods upon Burt's retirement. John Pankow began acting on the soap opera The Doctors in the early 80s, but his big break, the 1985 crime drama To Live and Die in LA. In 1987, John played Fred Melrose in the Michael J. Fox-led comedy The Secret of My Success, and he finished off the 80s with roles in Monkey Shines, and then the star-studded Talk Radio. Mad About You was definitely his most prolific TV arc, but in 2017 he began a very commanding arc on the Showtime show Episodes. Today, John Pankow is 67 years old and has been married to actress Christine Sutherland since 1986. When he's not acting, he enjoys cooking for his wife and their daughter. And Ramsay.
When you've been stood up enough, you develop a sense about these things. Jimbo!
Lisa Stemple is Jamie's older sis, and for lack of a better phrase, has incomprehensible psychological problems, making her character unsteady by nature but very fun to watch. Lisa's neurotic behavior was the perfect contrast to Paul and Jamie's feng shui. And Ramsay was born in LA, so it was just a matter of time until she was a part of the team. And her big break was a home run, playing Helen Haley and playing first base in the amazing Penny Marshall directed A League of Their Own. And although Anne is athletic and enjoys playing beach volleyball, she required a baseball double for the film. Julie Croteau would enter the game, and she is a legend herself as the first woman to play men's NCAA college baseball, suiting up for St. Mary's College in Maryland. And Ramsay worked consistently on TV, from over 40 episodes of The Secret Life of the American Teenager in 2010 to just recently in 2021 as part of the NBC dual reality drama Ordinary Joe. Today, Ramsay is 62 years old, and her next project is the spectral film Brooklyn 45. Richard Kind. Dr. Mark Devanow is the melodramatic former OBGYN who was married to Fran, aka Jamie's best friend. So naturally, Paul and Mark got thrown together often, much to Paul's chagrin. But Richard Kind is so wonderful on this show and really in anything ever. His voice, his reactions, just priceless. And from Spin City to Curb Your Enthusiasm, this guy is a TV darling. But he can really do it all. From voicing Van in Pixar's Cars and Cars 2 to the heartbreaking imaginary friend Bing Bong in Pixar's Inside Out. Richard is oh so talented. Recently you could see him on The Goldbergs. And this 65-year-old actor has friends in all the right places, as George Clooney was the best man at his wedding. Richard and his ex-wife Dana have 3 children together. Leela Knsell.
If I told you I once cried because I didn't have a gravy boat, would you believe me?
Fran Devanow is Jamie's best friend, and she and Mark have a rather obnoxious son named Ryan. Eventually, after the PR shuffle, Fran goes into business with Jamie and even re-teams with her ex-husband Mark. Leela Knsell worked as a waitress in LA before landing a minor role on The Cosby Show in 1989. Her Mad About You part was by far the best of her career, and after minor roles for so long, the last being in the 2003 film Identity, she retired from acting entirely. Afterward, she obtained a master's degree in clinical psychology, and today Leela is 61 years old and works as a marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles. Cynthia Harris. Sylvia Buchman is Paul's mom, who almost always gives Jamie a hard time, occasionally showing kindness to her daughter-in-law. Cynthia Harris began acting in Hollywood in the early 70s, with some offbeat films like the Barbra Streisand comedy Up the Sandbox. Then she moved to TV, with the show Husbands, Wives, and Lovers, before gaining critical attention for her performance in the miniseries Edward and Mrs. Simpson. But her comic Yenta mom character for Mad About You was certainly a standout panned out for 5 seasons. And though the esteemed actress never foresaw playing such a brass comical character, she had a delightful time in the sitcom land. Her final roles were playing Mike's mother on the FX show Rescue Me, and the 2007 film I Do and I Don't. Cynthia was born and raised in New York City, and that's where she passed away in October of 2021. She was 87 years old and suffered from type 1 diabetes for most of her life. Louis Zorich. Burt Buchman is Paul's papa. He ran the sporting goods store before retirement, and you can't forget his signature line when he visits Paul and Jamie's 11th floor apartment.
It's Burt! It's your father-in-law, Burt Buchman!
Louis began acting in 1958 and gained some recognition with his role as the Russian constable in the film version of Fiddler on the Roof in 1971, as well as the cab dispatcher in the comedy For Pete's Sake in 1974. But I first remember him feeding the Muppets coffee in 1984's The Muppets Take Manhattan. And as for TV, he also played Marion Ross's husband in the early 90s series Brooklyn Bridge, which as a show enjoyed 12 Primetime Emmy nominations. Louis was married to actress Olympia Dukakis from 1962 until his death in 2018. Dukakis you'll certainly remember as Clarie Belcher in Steel Magnolias. He and Dukakis had 3 children together, who all work in the film industry. Their daughter Christina acts just like Mom and Pop. Maui.
This is no.
The Buchman's adorable dog Murray was played by Maui, a collie mix originally found in a California animal shelter. Maui was 9 years old when he got his first major break as Murray, the lovable but slightly dim-witted pup. The only other credit Maui had was the 2005 holiday horror flick Santa's Sleigh. And for the reboot, the collie mix was replaced by a mixed-breed dog named Walter. But hey Maui, you were certainly cuter. If you haven't checked out the reboot, you gotta. The chemistry is back. The apartment is back, with a few modifications.
We added this chair, and do you know why? This is the chair when we don't have the strength to make it to bed. We just go.
So let's chat. Who is your favorite character on Mad About You? What's a great episode you remember? And for those of you who did, what'd you think of the 2019 revival? Get in the comments and let us know. We read them all. As always, make a mad dash and smash that thumbs up icon for us. And subscribe to the channel for more. But from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.